Okay, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I want to thank everyone for joining today. So today is a Sikhi Enlightenment workshop, and I'm just going to run through what that is initially, and some of a couple of initiatives that we're doing at Share Charity. So that's the charity is Sikh History and Religious Education, and we generally create resources for Sikhi. I'm just going to run through a few of those before we make a start. Today's workshop is going to be until 12:30. So we've got just under 2.5 hours at the moment. So I'll run through what we'll be doing. I just want to be clear at the beginning, because I think last time we did this workshop, we did it at the end of December. This isn't the Enlightenment course. The Enlightenment course takes probably about 6 hours or 7 hours to run through. So this is a workshop on a few Sikhi concepts that we've outlined in the poster. The course, we do want to do that live, face to face, rather than online, because it just takes too long to do, really. But hopefully, when we get out of lockdown and things like that, we can start coming out and delivering the full Enlightenment course. I'm just going to do a quick introduction to myself. My name is Tarsem Singh. I'm a global speaker on the Sikh faith. So I've been delivering local lectures since 1995, and been going internationally for quite a few years now, in various camps and things, and seminars. And also, so my background is software development and programming, and we developed a long time ago in 2000 the Sicky to the Max software, which is something that's used worldwide for searching Gurbani. My role was as a global director of software, but recently I concentrate quite a bit more on doing Sikhi projects. Sorry, I'm just promoting Raman to panelist while I do that, so that you can do his introduction. And so recently we've been doing a few projects that I'll run through as well. But I'm going to just pass over to Raman now, who will just do his introduction.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I'm Raman Singh. I've been I'm currently working as a technical account manager in a software company again. But my background is professional background. I'm an aerospace engineer. So I came to UK back in 2008. And I came here to study aerospace at Coventry University, and met all the Gursikhs in Coventry, and that's when I took Amrit in 2008. And since then, I've been working with Share Charity quite closely. Share stands for Sikh History and Religious Education. So I've been working on various projects with Paisab as well, and then recently, I spent about 4 years in academia as a lecturer, and that's when we thought, how can we apply those skills to give the message of Sikhi in a constructive and a more organized manner, rather than the usual ad hoc prachar which happens at Gurdwara, which we were finding that wasn't as effective with youth, especially the ones who speak English and don't understand Punjabi. So since then, me and Basa, we started delivering the Sikhi Enlightenment course, which we delivered in different cities and many other countries in Europe as well. So that's me.
Thank you, Raman. What I'm going to do is just going to put you back to attendee again while I go full screen, and I'll bring you back in on your section. So I'm just going to run through what we're doing today. So the Sikhi Enlightenment course is just for a bit of background. It's something that we developed. Roman just touched on it there. We developed as a structured way of teaching some of the Sikhi principles, and it was something that has been delivered across the UK. We've been out to Europe as well, and and delivered it in Punjabi and in English. But we also went to the UK Army, the Sikh Army, and well, the Sikh soldiers, sorry, in the army rather than the Sikh army, and also some a prison we developed. We've delivered in a prison too, which was very. It went down very well. So we'll be doing a lot more of that, like I said earlier. And just to be clear, this isn't the Sikhi Enlightenment course; it's a workshop on Sikhi. The other thing is the Why Am I Here book, which is covers a lot of the concepts that we talk about. Is available on eBay and Share Charity Shop. If anyone hasn't received their copy yet, you can order it there. So that's gone down actually very well, and we're getting a lot of interest. It's gone out to Canada now, and it's moving over to USA probably next week and the week after, Singapore and a few other countries too. So certainly please read that if you haven't already done so. And just as a quick couple of things that are coming up that are quite exciting, there's a Sikhi marriage handbook that I've just written and completed. So that one will be released in February, probably be available for pre-ordering in shortly. And this was just on the back burner of we did a divorce survey of Sikhs who'd got divorced, and tried to kind of get a little bit of very high level research on why those things happen, and there are some kind of difficult statistics that have come out of that. So this is something that we want to promote for healthy marriage, certainly pre-marriage as a preemptive measure, but it's also a framework for people who are married as well to go over the Sikhi aspects, and a lot of it is like common sense aspects to marriage too. And finally, this book's probably releasing at the same time. It's just a little spiritual wisdom book that's coming out. It kind of answers little questions, like big questions, but in a kind of a concise way. Things like, should I feel hurt? Why am I special? And all those kind of big questions that we have about Sikhi. So sorry, someone's saying hopefully my voice is a little bit clearer now. I'm just going to go over what we're going to do today. So there's going to be 5 topic areas, and there will be 3 polls. So we're just going to ask you kind of almost yes/no answers to polls. So anything that you answer is absolutely anonymous. We're not trying to record any data about anyone and send it to Facebook or something. And we'll probably have a short break after either 2 or 3 of those topic areas, and there will be a Q&A. It'll be 3. It will be 3 because there's a Q&A at the end. So if you do have questions, please raise them in the Q&A area. If you want to put it in the chat too, you can, and we'll collect them and try to answer them at the end. So the questions did get quite long in the last workshop, so if you can put the questions as early as possible, we can kind of work out how much time we need for them, because last time I think we went over by about half an hour or 40 minutes trying to answer all the questions, which was good. It's positive. It was a good thing. But it's just for timing, in case someone's got a hard stop at 12:30, it would just help if we knew how long we needed for them. So I'm going to jump straight into the first topic, which is an interesting one, and in that, God knows what you are thinking. So when we think of our life, and sometimes, a lot of the times, our Sikhi life, it's sometimes looked upon as what I do in my Nitnem or what I do at the Gurdwara, but really that's really not what Guruji is saying. So what we're going to start with is a quick translation of a Bhangti of Gurbani. So he knows everything without us speaking. Unto whom should we offer our praise? So the Shabad is saying that God knows everything about us, even what we're thinking, and we're offering prayers, but really Guruji knows, Waheguru knows what we're thinking. So when we try to get into this, if we look at this from a worldly perspective, if I do something physically in this world, there's consequences. So, for instance, if I assault someone, if I hit somebody, if I do fraud, you know, if you do some heinous crime, someone murders somebody or anything like that, there's consequences to those actions, and those consequences are dealt with by, you know, penal codes and law and order in countries and various things like that. So that's a relatively easy thing to understand. But when we look at ourselves internally, because we haven't physically done something, so just because I haven't stolen something, it still doesn't mean that I haven't. It doesn't mean that I haven't got a mind of a thief. You know, if I haven't lied, let's say physically, I might still have a thought process that's deceptive. So there is this thing about thinking sinfully that we sometimes we ignore, but it's probably the most important part of when we think about spirituality. So, like when we look at spiritual systems in the world, sometimes spirituality has gone down to this thing about, you know, watching your breath, or, you know, it's like, you know, being kind. Let's say that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with being kind, but there's a lot more to it than that. That's a very, you know, it's a very high level view of spirituality. So the problem that we have is that when we think, some of that what we're thinking can be actually, it can be like very off the path, very off the path. So if a person isn't a gambler, as I was saying before, it could be that you've still got a lot of desire for gambling. A person could never have committed adultery ever in their life, but it might be that the mind is always has still got a desire to do that. That's the thing that Guruji is focusing on in a lot of Gurbani. And when we look at terminology in Bani, when we say Bab, Guruji says Bab, a Bab is something that you do in your mind. And an aparad, when you say aparadi, that's something that we do physically. So if you read a lot of shabds, they talk about, you know, ajo, you know, when say greta ban khand jaiye chun khaiye kanda ajo bekar na shodei papi man manda. The shabd saying that the man is a puppy, even though on the outside it's let go of this world. It thinks, the body thinks, and it's gone off into a forest and trying to do some meditation or something. It says the mind is still really sinful. So one of the things that I want everybody to at least have a think about now is, Guruji talks about our mind as a yogi. You know, there's been a lot of mix up about Sikhi and yogi and how yoga and how it's connected. But really, if you read Gurbani is saying the man is a beragi jogi. The mind is the yogi, really. And you know, even our Guru Ramdas Ji is regarded as Raj Jog Jinmano. Guruji is the actual expert or the master of Raj Jog. And Raj Jog is not a physical yoga; it's yoga of the mind. That Guru Ramdas Ji has perfected Raj Jog. That means that the mind is under full control of the Guru. Now, if you think about our mind as a yogi, I want to just, if our mind is always focusing outwards, it's always looking at outward things. It sees our, you know, what it perceives in the outside world. Now, what our Guruji is asking us to do is to say, if the mind is a yogi, think of it in its lotus pose, whatever you might imagine a yogi as. But Guruji is saying, take that mind and spin it around, turn it around, and now look inwards. And when you look inwards, what do you see? And if we turn our mind inwards and start looking, then we start seeing some really uncomfortable things. And when we ask Bhai Gurdas Ji, what is it? What are we as a person? Bhai Gurdas Ji, whose writings are regarded as kind of to understand Gurbani, it's regarded as the kunji or the key to understanding what Guruji's message is. And then you can understand Bani more easily and absorb yourself in Gurbani. That's what Bhai Gurdas Ji's writings are. Now, he's written a body that says, Hon aparadi gunagar, hon bemukmanda, chor yar juar, hon par kar johanda. There's about 20 plus avgun that Bhai Gurdashi talks about. Avgun meaning sins, or our lower self, that we're doing some things that are not moral. And aparadi is someone who commits sins with their hands, right? Gunagar, a bemuk, a sinner, someone who bemuk, who turns their face to the guru. Jor, a yar, a thief. A yar is an adulterer. Juar, a gambler. Barakar Johanda, someone who looks at someone's household and wants something bad to happen to it. That's a Barakar Johanda, who damages people's households. Nindik, Dusht, Haram Khor, Tagdesh, Ganda. I'm a sin. I slander people. A Dusht, that's like almost like a bully, someone who's got that bullying nature of doing barb to people. Haram Khor, who takes things from someone and then does a barb to them in return. That's a Haram Khor. Tagdesh Taganda. I'm known as a puppy in many countries. So Bhai Gurdashi, when he's looking inwards, he's seeing five doot Kam, Krodh, Mad, Lobh, Moh, Hankar, Karanda. So when we look inwards, there's a lot of dodgy things, if you like. There's a lot of sinful things that are happening. Now that's what we've got to tackle as Sikh, as a Sikh. As a Sikh of the Guru, we have to look inwards. And the problem is when we start looking inwards, our mind's got that tendency to say, it's right, turn around again. Let's have a look what's going on in the world again. And it also, the mind starts comparing itself to others to say, well, I'm not as bad as that person. Well, I'm not as bad as that person. Really, that's a false sense of security. So when we think about what's going on inside of us, and God sees it too, He knows everything without us speaking, like Guru Amar Das Ji saying, then we get a true understanding of where we are as a human being, as let's say a spiritual person, as a learner of the Guru, as someone who's trying to find God. You get clarity of what that is. So inner reflection is really important, that we turn around and actually reflect on it and understand, just because there's no one can put you in prison for how you're thinking, but we could put ourselves into prison by how we're thinking. I think that's it's a really important thing to understand. No one physically can say to you, well, you thought like this, unless you act it out in this world. No one can really say it's something that's a criminal offense. Whereas our internal thinking and our sins are like that. Now, a little thing I want to touch on is that Guruji says we have four voices. They're called Jar Baniya. It's when we speak, it starts at number 1 here, then it goes to number 2, number 3, number 4, and these have got names. It's Para, Pasanti, Madhama, Bakery. There's four words, but that's not the important part that I want to talk about. What it is that when we say things, our speech has got an emotion wrapped around it, and that emotion can be positive, and the emotion can be very negative. So, obviously, an obvious example of positive emotion is to speak with love to somebody, to speak with humility, to speak with sweetness. Is as if it's not false and it's an emotion that's coming through, that's actually a gun. That's actually what we call a virtue. So, but if we have, we can also see somebody as an enemy, and we see someone as an enemy, then a different type of emotion is going to come. If I see someone as in hatred, I don't like what they've done to me before, that's going to come through as a hatred. And what we're doing, we're coloring our voice with those emotions. Now, how we think, how we process things, and what we remember, that's kind of makes up a lot of what our personality is. So when we are saying the Guru's words, sometimes we get a lot of questions about, I can't concentrate. How do you focus on on Bart or on Kirtan or on Simran? And because we kind of introduce all of these methods, like we say, what I was talking about earlier, where we say, mindfulness, or watch your breath, watch your breathing, all that stuff, that Guruji doesn't talk about things like that. If you read Gurbani, he doesn't talk about, Guruji doesn't say things like that. What Guruji says is that, and I'll give you an example. Guruji says, how if you hadn't eaten for 3 days and someone offered you food, if someone hadn't eaten for 3 days and you offer them food, they're not going to sit there and start looking at the food and saying, well, yeah, it's in a nice container, or it's this, that, they're just going to eat it. And the way Guruji gives 3 examples. One is of a lustful person. When a lustful person does something lustful, they don't look around. They don't look, and they're not thinking about techniques or anything like that. They just go and do it. And the third example Guruji gives is it's like a mother. When a mother is looking after a child, it's instinctive. It's really instinctive. So when we're reading part and we're doing Simran and we're doing these things, we have to have emotion with it. If there's no emotion, like sometimes when it's time to do part, or it might be time to do Simran, or time to wake up early, the mind goes lazy. It says, oh, I can't be bothered. How can I delay that as long as possible? So that is kind of, we're off on the wrong foot already. Whereas if we were turning around and saying, oh, there's a premiere of a film at the cinema today, then we're really excited to go and watch that. Or there might be some other hobby that we do. So the first problem is that we automatically create a level of boredom in our spiritual practice, or how we do our Sikhi. So if we love it and we enjoy something, you don't think about controlling thoughts, like those 3 examples. In those 3 examples, a human being, if you ask a mother how she looks after a child, she doesn't have to be trained to do that. There's an instinctive way that she does it. If you look at, like I say, someone who's sinful, when they're doing their sin, they don't think of consequences or work anything out. They just go and do it. So Sikhi's got we're trying to develop that. It's not going to come there straight away, but that's what we're trying to develop. We're trying to develop a Sikhi where when we do it, it's emotions attached to it, then I don't have to think about it. The thoughts just go away. I'm absorbed in that thing. That's what ik man ik chit means when we say Jini naam te aaya, ik man ik chit. That's what it means. It means that the emotion is in it, their chit is in it, and their mind and the thoughts are all settled in what they're doing. So the reason why I mentioned those 4 voices is that at point 1, it's really where the emotion starts. If you think about some of these emotions that we have, like fear, when you're scared, really it's deep it's deep down in your navel. That's where it starts. Even things like anger, we think, oh, anger's up here, it's in my head. But if you feel anger, it comes from, especially when you're going to say something to somebody with real emotion in it, you're really angry, it's coming from the navel, number 1. So have a better focus on that. When we speak, is to have a focus on that. This voice that's about to come out, is it colored in any emotion? And when you get awareness of that, it actually changes you as a person, because you'll start actually, the people who are around you, you start seeing them as souls, instead of just like, oh, that's my wife or my husband, or that's my mom, or that's my brother, or that's my friend. You start seeing them differently, because you're connecting from a different thing. So just be aware of how you're thinking, and how that thinking is leading to an action. I think that's the essence of what I'm trying to say here. And the emotion part, because it's important that when we look at our emotions, and how when life doesn't necessarily go our way, or things start going a little bit, I'm feeling a bit off, or I'm not feeling happy now about life, what happens is our emotions get tilted, and they topple over, and then sometimes the wrong emotions start coming out. And some of the things that I was reading about, and when I studied the mental health problems I did a first aid course on it, and I just read around it a bit. But if a person's feeling down, the best thing that a person can do, absolute best thing is to talk. To talk about it. And it's because we're releasing a set of emotions. We're releasing them when we're talking. So when even how we think and how we release it as we speak, those two things are really highly obviously connected. They're connected, and that's the thing that we should be trying to nurture. The thinking process and the speaking process is such an important part, because obviously if we're singing kirtan, then that's got to come from an emotion. I can look. We can all do Bart in a certain way. I can just read Bart like this, going, and there's nothing in it. There's nothing in what I'm doing, but there's another way of doing it by applying specific emotions to it. That it is touched on in the in the staying connected chapter in Why Am I Here as well, is that we can apply certain things, and the virtues chapter, because we can say things with love, we can say things with fear, we can say things, and I'm talking about Guru's Bani. I could say the Guru's Bani by feeling really separated from God, and if I say it like that, it adds a different dimension to how I'm saying it. I can also say out of Sharda, of proper respect of the Guru. So there's many emotions that you can apply before you speak. So controlling those emotions is important, and ensuring that when our emotions are feeling a bit off, that we still use our voice to release those, the negative emotions as well. But obviously in a controlled way. I'm not saying if we're feeling angry, we just go and swear at any people or anything like that. It's about understanding that emotion, and then how do I change that. So at the end of these sections, I've just come to the end of that first one. What we were doing, because this was just on New Year's Eve that we did this, we were talking about what to positive things that we can do in 2021. So from this particular section, the two kind of targets we would say for 2021 for us is give time to evaluating your innermost emotions. What do you feel generally? How are you feeling now? How were you feeling yesterday? What's your general feeling, and how much time have you given to that? Think about it, feel it. That yogi thing we were talking about. Turn around, have a look. Who's really inside? What's going on? Because one of the things is we tend to know all the people around us a lot more than we know ourselves a lot of the time. We know them more than we know ourselves. We know that, that person gets upset if I say this, they get happy if I do this, we enjoy doing this thing together, but sometimes we don't know about our own ones. So have give a little bit more time about evaluating those emotions, and make your spiritual life more than just actions. So when we do our, when we go to the Gurdwara, let's not just go to the Gurdwara to say, okay, I spent my 10 minutes at the Gurdwara and I'm done, and I've ticked a box. Let's make that into something more than that. Make it an emotional experience. That's certainly trying to control that inner thinking that God's watching. Really, that's what the purpose of this whole area is. God's watching us all the time. And there's the one pankti that in Gurbani it comes is Bekhat Sonat Sada Hai Sange. He looks and sees everything I'm doing. He hears everything I'm doing. Is with me all the time. I'm the fool who thinks that God's far away. So God is always nearby, and God is not as a watcher, is as a friend too. You got to remember, in Gurbani we call Waheguru Meet, Sajjan. We call God, God is a friend as well. It's not just that He's watching us to punish us, which is kind of this Christian kind of view of God. It's God is very, very close to us, and important in our day-to-day actions.
You see my screen? Let me know once you can see it. Yeah, can you see it?
Yeah.
So in this topic, chariot and the charioteer, this comes from Gurbani Singh in Asadivar Guruji says that there's a pankti where Guruji is saying Nanak Mer Sharir Ka Ik Rath Vaho, where Guruji is saying that this body is like a diamond. Is obviously Guruji has given us this body, this human life form, is very rare to get, and we are wasting it away. However, there is a chariot and the charioteer, and Guruji is talking about here. Guruji is talking about someone is controlling this body eventually, and we're just going to dive into that. So Paisal just explained about um, when you go deep in, and you can reflect on yourself. However, for self-realization, Guruji tries and unravels those things about who we are, who as an identity, or me. If someone asks me who you are, I would probably say I'm Raman Singh. I'm an engineer. I'm a dad. I'm a mom, etc., etc. Whoever you might be. However, Guruji is asking, is this what you are, or is there more to it? Can we distinguish ourselves into what our mind thinks we are, what our soul is, and our body? When we go to courses, and when we deal with this course in different cities and countries, and meeting the Sangat, what we have seen is that I think uh, for years and years, and even for probably the whole life, uh, we have never reflected on ourselves and even thought about what is this, is my mind me? I think a lot of times we think that what my mind is what who I am, but that's not true. That's not what Guruji is saying. Guruji is asking us to distinguish ourselves from this mind, and and try and understand how this mind is trying to waste this life away, this life which is limited, which obviously we may have a certain amount of years or breaths that we bring along with us when Guruji gives us this body. But have you realized that what this mind is doing and how it's controlling us? And this is where we're using this example of this evil charioteer, the charioteer mind, um, who's basically turned against us, is trying to drag this soul, which is in this body, in all different directions, and bringing it back into this birth and death cycle, the cycle of reincarnation. But this body, on this body, Guruji says, tries to explain us that obviously we have our eyes, we have nose, we have tongue, etc., etc. It's like we're using an analogy here of, let's think about this in a way that you have 9 horses, and this mind is trying to drive. All 9 horses are going in different directions. It's impossible to get to your destination. And if you put that analogy in this chariot and the charioteer analogy that Guruji is using, um, this is technically what our mind is trying to do to us. It never sits in one place. It's always trying to wander in different directions. Sometimes it's our eyes, sometimes it's our nose. We smell something, and straight away there's a thought that comes in our mind, and then suddenly we want that thing, which we will cover in the next topic. Is that what are the consequences of this mind taking us into different directions by pulling these 9 horses, which are your eyes, your nose, your tongue, your sense of taste, touch, and what these desires which are formed in our mind as soon as we do that. And these desires then bring then obviously these desires, what Guruji is saying is that is the main cause of us coming back into life and death. Now, if you think about this mind as a bird, Bhagat Fariji says in Gurbani that you can meet Waheguru today. There's a claim being made in Gurbani where Guruji is saying that what we all say, oh, is how difficult it is to meet Waheguru. You can spend lives and lives and lives. You might be coming 100 life forms, and you may still not get darshan of Waheguru. You know? But Fariji is saying that you can. There's a claim. Fariji is saying that you can find God today. The only condition is that this bird-like mind capture this bird-like mind. Guruji, Parfriji says कि आज मिलावा शेख फरीद ताकम कुंजड़ियां मन मचंदड़ियां. This man which is flying everywhere, bring it inside and let it stay within yourself, and you can find Vaheguru. So what we're trying to get to is that we need to, as human beings, we sometimes don't reflect on ourselves. We don't really, and there's so many different factors which are in this life. Basically, um, our society is designed in a way that it doesn't let our mind rest in one place. So I might be going outside this external factors, etc., which we're going to cover into detail. Um, but if we think and we distinguish ourselves between that, I have this body is temporary, it's gonna perish one day. Um, then I've got this mind and I've got a soul, and and we need to try and look at whether we can see that soul or not. But I think a lot of times that the eternal part which is the soul, which is Ram ki ansh, Guruji says that this soul is an element of Vaheguru. It has been separated from Vaheguru, and using this body you have to merge this soul back to Vaheguru. But the mind doesn't let that happen, and we need to understand this game, and when you understand this play which has been set, and what mind is trying to do to us, that's where Guruji tries to explain many ways. Guruji is trying to speak to the man in as a friend, speak to this man as an enemy as well, trying to speak to this man and trying to convince this mind as well to why don't you listen, why don't you listen to what Guruji is saying. And I think if we try to practice that every day, we see the difference. Like what Paisa was saying, that I might be reading part, but my man is not present there. I might be singing Gurbani, but the emotion is not there because my mind is not there. And I think when the mind is present, the emotions come along with it. Um, so I think the steps that we could take in 2021. Sorry, I think we should have explained it. That what we're trying to do is that in we're trying to in these 4 sections, we're trying to give a framework of what could we work on in 2021, just like we have objectives for or ambitions for our our career, or it may be for our um, um, for money. I want to buy that many houses this year, whatever that may be, which is okay to have. But at the same time, what are the goals we can set for ourselves as well, for our Sikhi to progress? And that's what we're trying to do in these 4 sections. And I think in this charity and the charitier topic, um, what we thought could be is that we should start getting a bit more conscious about our mind going outwards. So this mind which is going everywhere, we should try and control it, try and resist this outgoing mind. And if you ever try it, you're gonna see that although you're not screaming, but this mind actually screams. Although it feels like the mind when you try to resist this mind from going outwards, which is the nature of the mind, um, it, in within yourself is going to sound like there's some war going on between you and another element of yourself. And but I think when you try and practice it and try it sometimes when you go to Gurdwara, that's where the mind goes out the most. I think when you try to do something Sikhi, because mind wants to be entertained. I think when you're watching a movie, it will probably be more concentrated than or more focused compared to when you're trying to do something Sikhi related. At least for me, but everyone's different. Um, and try that. Ever try that when you go to Gurdwara, or when you're trying to watch something Sikhi related, or you are reading a book, or you're doing some part. What you're gonna see is that mind doesn't even take an instant to go away from that and starts thinking something else. And that's where the war begins. We have to try and fight that and try and resist it and be more aware that this is what mind is doing to ourselves, because um, this is where Guruji is saying that a Gursikh is Birla, because Gursikh reflects on his mind and tries to control this mind and stops the mind going out. Even before the thought comes in, Gursikh is aware and brings it back in. Like what Bhai Gurdas ji says, Balhari tina Gursikha bahar janda varj rahaya. Before even the mind goes out, he stops it. Gursikh controls the mind. And And that's what we need to try and do. But there's more to it. Obviously, before we control the mind, we need to start thinking about indriya, which is what we spoke about, the 9 horses. How can we purify these 9 horses? So in Anand Sahib, Guruji is saying that "E netro mere har tum mein jyot rakhi, har bin na dekho koi." Like Guruji is saying that why are these eyes been given to us? Why is this tongue being given to us? Why is this nose being given to us? What is the purpose of these? And how can we realign them to bring it on track, so that these thoughts don't get developed in my mind in the first place? So I think this is very quickly we wanted to cover in this section. I think we have a poll now on this topic, isn't it, Faisal? Can
Yeah,
you?
I don't know. The polls haven't come up here. I'm not sure where they are.
I've got a poll here. Yeah, I've got it.
You've got it as your host. You should be able to rate. Yeah.
Okay, let me try and. So we're gonna send you a poll, which would have a question and about 3 options there. Obviously, during lockdown, it has been a strange situation we've all been in, and we wanted to try and see, has this helped your mind from going? What was the difference between the normal life and the lockdown life? Do you see any difference in terms of whether your mind, how is your mind behaving in this lockdown? Obviously, in UK we are still in lockdown again, the 3rd lockdown, but I think we have some attendees from India as well, which may be in a different situation. But I think every one of us has been in a lockdown now, regardless of what country you're from. Um, but we want what do you think? How has your mind behaved? So I will launch a poll. I will give you 2 minutes to just fill your answers. You should be able to see it.
Yeah.
Okay, so 47% said that it's more difficult. 27 said it's the same, and 27 said that it was easier. Actually, now last time when we did the scores, I think it was the other way around. People said that it was easier for them because the mind was actually more settled. And we were reflecting about on this. Um, it actually ties in with the next section we're going to talk about, is that if it's easier, that means that our mind, but obviously we're not going outside. We're not going away anywhere. We're not going on holidays. We're not, or we because we're at home. Probably it gives us more time to reflect ourselves, to try and do things which we like doing, and the mind is settled. Um, but but at the same time, it can also be difficult. I was actually expecting what you have today, but in the results that we have today. But last time we got something opposite, and the reason why I thought it would be difficult is because the other nature of mind is to always worry about things. I think mind is always anxious, is always thinking, it is always worried about things, and the consequences of things which are not in our control. Um, and I think because obviously with this lockdown, there's jobs on risk, there's financial pressures, and so many other factors which the mind, a lot of people are now saying that the mind is anxious about what's going to happen in their life. Um, and this is again where Guruji is saying that although you always worry about things, but end of the day is a hukum that's going to happen anyways. So why are you always worrying about things? But I don't want to go into too much into that. I think it'll be covered in the next sections when we talk about desires and stuff like this. But yeah, it's good to know that um about what different people think, and how these polls change from audience to audience. I think I will stop there. Faisal, do you want to take over on the next section?
Okay. So we're going to move on now to a topic about anger, what we call krodh in Sikhi, and this is it's an interesting topic because it's easy to get angry, and it's easy to get frustrated. But there are consequences, I think, and that's what's the important part to understand. There's consequences when we do indulge ourselves, let's say, in anger. So we're going to start again, as we do in the format. We're going to start with what Guruji's message is for us. And this is a quote from a Bani in Sanskriti Slok. So they're the Sanskrit language in the Gurbani. But Guruji says, "O anger, you are the root of conflict. Compassion never rises up in you. You take the corrupt, sinful beings in your power and make them dance like monkeys." So when we lose control and get angry, really what we are doing is we're losing our human self in a certain way. And I'm just going to very briefly cover, the five when we talk about five evils, we call them Panjdoot in Sikhi. There are survival mechanisms. There's anger has been put in our body for a reason, and we're going to try and explore that in a minute. But when we interact with people in the world, that's where our five evils come out. So lust is an interaction with the world. Our lust is, you lust for something. It's usually someone of the opposite sex or gender, but lust could be for other things too. It's a desire. And then anger is like, it's because of my interaction with the world. There's a problem. My attachment is the same. My greed is the same. What I perceive, and my pride, that hankar that we have, it's an interaction with how I interact with people. Now, anger, just going to focus on that one for a second. Anger usually comes about when when we're going to lose control of a certain situation. That's what causes us to get angry. We're feeling that we've lost control, and that could be it's not limited to, but it could be that it's your possessions. It could be a threat to your body or your life, but it could also be a threat to your reputation or a certain controlling thing that you're trying to have control of. It's you've lost a bit of control in it, and we get angry. That's where it kicks in. Now, when we look at Sikhi, we have these 10 stages in our life. We're born, we go through a phase of we wanting milk. Pehle pyar laga thana dudh, the shabd talks about duje mai baap ki. So then we get an understanding of our mother and father, and that's what we're kind of consumed in. Then we get consumed in brothers and sisters and cousins and different things like that. Then it goes into playing, and then it goes into eating and drinking. We get a fascination with different things that we can eat, different things we can drink. But then it moves on. It goes into lust. Then it goes into building a house and saying, I need a partner. But at the 8th stage of life, of 10, Guruji says what overtakes us is anger. When anger takes over in the 8th stage, what it does is it actually damages our body. So when we talk about when we have diseases, sometimes they're driven by our emotions. If we've got an unsettled inner body, it damages our outer body. So if we look at Gurbani says, "Kaam krodh kaya ko gal hai, jo kanchan suhaga tal hai." There's a thing called suhaga, that if you touch it on gold, the gold starts going black. It damages gold. It's borax. It's called in English. So it's like a chemical, and it starts damaging the gold, and the gold starts going black. Now, Guruji is saying lust, anger, and all these things. When they're in our body, they start eating away at our body, physical body, that is. So the reason why we have to be a little bit careful about when anger comes inside of our body is destructive. It's destructive on not only our physical body, not only on our relationships, but if we look at the Shabad again, it's a root of conflict. We know that, but what we're doing, we're compromising our compassion, our daya, what we call daya, we're compromising our compassion for anger. That's what we're really doing. We're trading. And if you read Gurbani, a lot of those emotions, we're trading something for them. Now, there's a shabd in Sukhmani Sahib. It's Mithyana Hirasana Pars, Maname Preet Niranjan Dars. So I won't go over all the pankti. You can read that shabd. But what Guruji is saying is, when we talk in a bitter way and even swear, whatever we do, what we're trading there is our love for getting Waheguru's darshan, to be able to see God. We trade that through our insipid speech, the koda fikka bolana, what we call bolana. What we're trading is that wanting darshan. And Guruji says when we look lustfully at someone's body, what we're trading, partrya rupana pekha netra sadgi stehel sant sanghet. When we do that, what we're trading is service of the Guru and love for the saintly people. So really, when we look at lust is a misguided love, really. When our love gets misguided, it comes out as lust. Now, karana sune kahu ki ninda, sabte jane apas ko manda. When we slander somebody, what we're really doing is we're trading our humility for it. So we don't regard ourselves as low anymore. We trade that and start slandering. So if we understand Sikhi like this, when we get angry, as we were saying, compassion, daya, goes straight out the window. You lose it. You lose our compassion. So we lose our gun for an avgun. So not only are we diseasing our body, not only are we causing conflict, but what we're doing is destroying our virtues, and it's an important thing to recognize when these things happen. When we read Gurbani, Guruji tells us to avoid angry people. Now, ona paas duas na pittiye, jina andar krodh chandal. Guruji calls it a chandal. When you go to India, if someone of a Nimi Jat, someone who's got a lower caste, in India, especially in old times, they used to regard them as bad luck. They said, don't let them in your house. And I've heard all sorts of these superstitions that if you see someone of a lower caste in the morning or something is good luck, see them in the evening is bad luck. And it was like, you let them in the house at a certain time is bad luck. They had all these superstitions surrounding, someone of a lower caste. But what Guruji is saying is that chandal that you're talking about is really sitting inside you. You've already let it in your house. It's not that low caste person that you're trying to blame. He says it's the anger that's inside you. The anger inside you is actually the chandal, the low caste thing is sitting with you all the time, and Guruji wants us to avoid that. Now, we've only got 3 polls. This is the second poll. This is just an interesting poll. I want you to see what you'd make of this one. So let me just go to the polling. Right, here it is. Now, this poll that I'm gonna put up now, it's what do you think the attitude was? Like we're in 2021 now, but going back to if Guru Gobind Singh Ji's time or the Guru's time, what do you think the attitude was to someone who, let's say, they came into a Sikh congregation or the Sangat and they were angry? They get angry. What do you think it was? And so I'm just gonna, just out of interest, see how you answer. I'm just launch this now. If you can just spend a second, please. Just what do you think? So what was the attitude towards a Sikh who got angry in older times? Was the attitude to stop them coming into the congregation? Was it to not offer your daughter's hand in marriage? Was it to pray for them until their anger problem stopped? Or was it to give them an agreed, punishment and forgive them? What does everyone think it was? And I'll leave it there now. So this is an interesting question. It's like obviously most people say to give them an agreed punishment and forgive them. That's fine. That obviously we all know morally that's right. But actually, it was frowned upon if you got angry in Guruji's darbar. And there's a Rayatnama that says Sikh hoye ta kare krodh, kanya mool na deve sodh. Now, what Guruji said was that if you get angry in the Sangat, don't ever offer that person your daughter's hand in marriage. And that's a huge, it's a huge thing that Guruji is saying there. Imagine that a person's, you know, got sidelined as a person who's not allowed to get married. I'm sure they would be forgiven later on, but that's the warning that Guruji gave, that you could end up not even being allowed to get married, because the important message there is that it's a destructive thing. And obviously Guruji is saying to, if you know, our daughters are like our diamonds in the pant. You know, when, if you know, I was talking about it the other day. You know, men generally, if you take men, a lot of them have a little, sometimes have a corrupt attitude towards life. Women didn't tend to have that, generally that is. And sorry, did I switch it off? Share the results. I'm just sharing them here. Sorry, that was the I forgot I hadn't shared them. So 56% of you thought that it was to give the punishment, which was fine. Like, it's understandable, but it is actually, Guruji is actually saying your daughter's hand in marriage, don't give it to that person, because it's a very destructive thing. It was looked down upon so much. So today, you know, sometimes we say, "Oh, it's all right. I got angry." So what? I got angry. You know, I got angry with that. That's not. It's not. It's something to think about. It's actually, anger is it's a fire. It's an internal fire. That's a damaging thing. So I think it's sorry. And the question was, is this during Guruji's times? Yes. The question was around Guruji's time. So it's something that we've got to be very, very aware of. We've got to be very aware of, and what triggers us, what makes us angry, what is it, what control do we feel that we're losing, and really evaluate that well, and see what it is. Now, when we look at how to control anger, because obviously that's the next question. Okay, so we don't get angry. How do we stop getting angry? And when we have to, when we look into that, how is Guruji telling us to lose anger? Now, one of the key elements is forgiveness. Is having a forgiving nature. A forgiving nature is a very difficult thing sometimes to have, because it's like you feel, yeah, but if I forgive, haven't I lost? You know, have I in this situation, have I lost? And when we read Faridji's Bani, Farid says, Farida Boreda Palakar, Gusama Nahanda. He says, if someone's doing bad, don't get angry. Don't get angry. Dehi Rogna Lagi Palle Sab Kishpai. Now, even in that shabd, Faridji is saying that your body will not get diseased, and you'll receive everything. You'll receive everything. Now, sometimes it takes a bit of patience, because it looks like, if I'm losing, by being humble, I lose. But in my experience, in terms of that kind of approach to a problem, I've never felt that I've lost. If I've said leave it, I'm really not going to entertain. Let's just, don't get angry. That you don't lose. It's just something very strange about the laws of nature, if you like, or the way God's laws are. That over time, it might look like there's some problem there, but over time you don't lose, and you've got to have that understanding and vision of how has this played out, what's really happened here. So to respond to, instead of getting angry, our Guru is asking us to have a cooler temperament. So if we do have these kind of things, one of the kind of practical ways I studied, I guess, it's this thing called NLP, neuro linguistic programming. That if you have a problem, is to visualize that problem again. Have another look at it, visualize it. So let's say, for argument's sake, we're talking about anger here. There's a certain person I have, it really irritates me, makes me angry. They make me angry. You know, they just got a habit of it, and they do it really well. Is in neuro-linguistic programming, one of the things I read, and I thought it's quite interesting. This isn't Gurbani, by the way. I'm just saying it was an interesting thing that I saw, because a lot of Gurbani is about visualization too. If you read certain shabds like Moti Damantal Usra and other shabds like that, a lot of it is about visualizing and then breaking that thing. Where Guruji says, imagine I had a house made of diamonds and Ratnita hoye jadao, and but eventually on each body, Guruji says, so Guruji talks about that, talks about a really beautiful woman, then he talks about spiritual powers, and he talks about kingdoms. But at the end of each body, Guruji says, Mat dekh bhula bisre, tera chitna aave na. I hope I never look at that and forget your name. So it's kind of a visualization to build a desire, then to kill the desire. It's a really interesting Shabbat. But going back to the NLP process is that if someone's really getting you angry, is to sit down and visualize that person sitting on one side of a table and you're on the other, and let them do the thing that's making you really angry, and then understand where it gets you angry, and then visualize yourself getting angry, then do the whole process again and visualize yourself not getting angry this time. Understand that trigger and don't get angry. And then your mind sometimes accepts that as that's my last course of action that I did in a scenario like that, and it starts behaving like that. So I just found that was quite interesting, is that your mind can, through a visualization, can actually start feeling that that was actually a true experience of what I've just done, and then it starts behaving in that way. So that was an interesting way, let's say, of handling anger. But lust, anger, greed, and all these things. Now we talk about this. It's a dark age. This is called Kaljug. In Kaljug, these things are prominent. It's really. I mean, everybody saw the U.S. presidency. One of the things that was. So when we talk about truth and honesty and all these virtues that we're talking about, they talked about that Trump's presidency as truth decay. Truth decay. It's like it's okay to lie. It's okay to tell. So if this is happening on television from presidents and leaders and all that, the masses slowly start saying, well, it's okay, and it's an acceptable behavior. But anger is not an acceptable behavior, and it's something that as a spiritual person, as a gursik, that we have to bring the reins in and control it. So the positive steps for 2021: do something good for someone who has done bad for you. You said, just think about somebody who you feeling that, yeah, they've really done bad for me. And doing something good doesn't have to be something face to face with them. It doesn't have to be something physical with them in there. Doing good sometimes is just saying, hoping the best for them. Just saying, not thinking bad. And do more compassionate things, and anger will decrease. Gurbani does say that, as we're seeing up there, that if it's uprooting our compassion, if it's there that anger attacks, then increasing there logically should decrease anger. So being more compassionate in its very nature will reduce anger. That's what it does. So it's replacing a bad avgun with a virtue, and the virtue being compassion. So a compassionate nature isn't just going out and doing langar seva. That is a form of compassion. But compassion has to be more in our households too. Sometimes if someone around you has made a mistake, do you attack them? Is everything about frustration? Are you getting angry? Or what's the compassionate way of dealing with it? And sometimes compassion doesn't have to always be soft. Remember that. Sometimes you have to, compassion, you might be saying something in a very stern way to somebody, but you're being compassionate. It doesn't always mean that compassion is a soft approach to life. Compassion just means that you're thinking in the absolute best interests of another person. So these were the around anger, was to be very aware of it. If it is coming out and there's a certain person who's acting in a way that does upset you a lot, start doing good for them, and then try to get more replacement of anger with compassion in your life. So they were the three things. What we're going to do now, there are actually, so we're not doing bad on time actually. We're doing quite well. there are some questions here. Adding back on. Now I'm going to start with a question that's about the topic I've just done, and then I'm going to work my way back because there's a couple on compassion and anger, but there's a couple on looking inwards, which is one of the things that we covered earlier. So, how do you avoid an angry person if you are married to them? That's a great question. It's going to be very difficult to avoid them if you're married to them. But I think with an angry person, sometimes that nature, it happens. Like I say, sometimes I'm just going to go back to what I was talking about earlier. You know, stage 8 of your life. I mean, I think I've reached it. You know, because things start frustrating you, and you got to be very, very on top of it. And I think things start when you reach stage 8 in your life, when you're kind of getting older, is because you start losing control. You start losing control of your physical body because it's not as fit it used to be, and it doesn't get fit as easily. You start losing control of, you know, oh, in the good old days it used to be like this, now it's like this. So you're feeling that you're losing control of things. So I think, you know, when you if you're married to someone who gets angry a lot, I think you need to speak about and get to understand what it is. What is it that makes them angry? It could be many things, and you know, sometimes anger is a little bit more than just a little problem that we've got to solve. Sometimes it can. I personally think anger can get to a certain stage where it needs counselling. You know, that you need to. It needs sometimes it needs professional help, because it's an instinctive trigger that's happening that's a bit irrational. It's irrational. It's not, you know, you don't just get angry over every little thing. Then what that means there's something seriously missing in your life. So if you are married to someone, I think please open up the communication, and you know, I hope that they could, if they could come to some workshops like these, and we could start talking about things like that too. Because even for when I went through the mental health thing and about the difference between men and women, because women tend to have more mental health issues, but men tend to have less, but they have more drastic action. Like more men commit suicide because of mental health. Men don't talk about this kind of stuff. They're not comfortable saying, you know, yeah, okay, I get angry, or you know, something's bringing me down. It's kind of like an ego thing, it looks like. Whereas women can just have that open conversation. There's, you know, someone's irritating the hell out of me, they can have a conversation about it. So sometimes it's having it needs intimate conversation about what it is, and with anything to solve it is to acknowledge it first, isn't it? Sometimes it's about acknowledging it. But we're living around. Let's say you can't change somebody, and they're really just it's understand their triggers. I would say get to know their triggers, get to know what it is, and you know, life shouldn't always be like treading on eggshells all the time. But you know, it might need to. Yeah, it might need to be an adjustment on both sides a little bit, right? Raman, do you want to answer one of these? How do you make yourself more compassionate? Isn't it something you have or don't have? Which is a good question. I like that question.
Yeah. Like, if you like, giving can make you compassionate as well, isn't it, Pasa? There are things that we can do, but at the same time, like Pasa was saying, I think it's also about that individual as well. Either you're compassionate or you're not. But things like giving more can make you compassionate. That's why a lot of the billionaires or the top guys, you look at them giving as well. I think, scientifically proven as well that giving makes you happy. It makes you more compassionate.
And you look, if you look at your body, I agree that compassion. I agree that compassion is an inner feeling, and you can't you know, Tol Taram Daya Kaput. When we read Japji Sahib, Guruji says that, you know, what righteous, you know, the religion, if you like, or the righteousness that we're trying to do, Guruji says it's the child of compassion. If compassion ain't there, righteousness ain't there. There ain't no religion. There isn't no spirituality if compassion isn't there. So although you have it or you don't have it is one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is that everybody's got it really. These virtues they're the virtues of the soul. Really, your soul's got these virtues. What Guruji is telling us to do is say, remove your ego out the way, remove your personality out the way, and they come flourish, they come out. All of those come out. Missing God, love, fear, compassion, sharda, all these different things they come out from inside. But we're suppressing them with layers. You've got to remove the layers, and it isn't that one person's been blessed with a lot of compassion, the other person hasn't. It means one person's released their compassion more, and the other one's blocked it through this worldliness that we talk about, which is attachment to the things that we have and desires for the things that we don't. So compassion will come out. It's our soul's nature for that to come out from somewhere, but it can only come out through the process of following what Guru says and removing.
And isn't it that the gun become pargas as well? Gun pargas ho jande hain,
Yeah,
है ना? Like Guruji saying, like sangat gun pargas, है ना? So when you come in sangat, Guruji is saying that these gun or these virtues come out. Virtues like compassion, being helpful to others, have empathy. These are the virtues that come out, है ना? They are in there, but they're not coming out. So.
And again, when we talk about that "Why Am I Here" book, there's a section on saintly company, and like because we've the company of the saint, sadhu sangat that we say, that is underutilized. It's very underutilized, and we don't use it for the right things. And one of the things that we do is when we go to the Gurdwara, I don't know when you go Gurdwara, what do you see? I see some interesting things sometimes about what people want. I just find it interesting to see what does a person want from God, why they're here, and you find that in a person's ardas. You find it if they're doing a program, what ardas are they doing, what they're asking God for, and people ask, a lot of people do it out of happiness, shukranna, say, thank you God for giving me this, thank you God for giving me this, and sometimes people say, please can I have this, and they're asking for various things. Like someone might ask for success in their job. I've seen a dasa for someone stay in England so that they get stay. There's a dasa for many things. Very rarely do you hear somebody do an ardas to say, please God, in my life, can I see your darshan? Can I get to see you in this life? And that's the ultimate aim of a Sikh as well. So sometimes when we talk about Sangat, which we're going to cover now, we're going to cover a lot in the desire section, and the final section is because Sangat, unfortunately, it links to, not unfortunately, but fortunately, yes, but it links to many things. And I'm going to leave some of those other questions about. There's some really good questions now about looking inwards and the issues with trying to look inwards, and I'm going to leave them till the end. But the Sangat topic also covers that too. The Sad Sangat is something that's very, very underestimated in our view of what our spirituality is, and I think we want to touch on it, but it's not part of our topic, so we'll cover it a bit more later. What we're going to do now is just going to give everyone a 5-minute break. So it's 22 minutes past now. We're going to restart 23. Sorry, we'll start at 28 minutes past. If you need it, grab a cup of coffee, go to the toilet, or do anything, drink like that. Just go ahead. We're not going anywhere. If anyone wants to ask, raise any other type of question that isn't necessarily QA, but wants to cover it, just chuck something across in the chat or something, and we'll cover that for a few minutes. But see you again in 5 minutes, just for a short break.
What's happening? How come it doesn't let us both stay on the?
Sorry, it's the way I'm
host
presenting.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm presenting through a webcam filter. so I could be on the screen, and so then I have to have the host full
Too
access.
techie you are. There are also some questions in the chat, so we can maybe cover that at the end.
There's an interesting. We can briefly cover Amrit Vela here now because there's a question about Amrit Vela. But Raman and I did a podcast on it, and it's on YouTube as well. I don't know if you've got the link.
I'll paste the link now.
But please watch or listen to it anyway. It's not it's a video, but it's not a visual video, if that makes sense. Certainly watch that around Amritullah because it's relatively detailed about why Amritullah is important. But generally, it's because when Guruji says Amritullah Satyanam Vadiyai Vichar, is that time is a very it's a connecting time and allows your mind to settle. And one of the things we covered in there is like if people study, if you try to memorize something at about 4 a.m., 3 a.m., it goes straight in. Whereas you try to do the same thing about 9 a.m., it has a delayed effect. It's very difficult. So there's a very interesting thing that happens at that time where mind can connect quite easily. But there's more to it than that. And please watch the podcast because it must be about 30 minutes. Is it 30 minutes, Roman?
Yeah, I think roughly about 30.
About 30. So we're not going to be able to cover all of it here. But,
This was it wasn't meant to be a podcast, but I think we were just doing a session with the Holland Sangat, so we recorded it. So it's been edited. I'll put the link in the chat now. So this section is on why do I always want more? Is a question that we get quite often when we whenever we deliver our courses, and it's probably one of the most generic questions that everyone tries to think about, but we want to give Guruji's perspective to this, and try and understand this in a little bit more deeper concept of desire. What is desire and how this affects us? Because ultimately, when I say why do I always want more, I'm talking about why cannot I stop my desires, because it's the desires which want me to, which is making me run in all directions to get more and more and more. So there's a shabad where Guruji saying that Trishna birle ki hi buji hai. Guruji saying that you can accumulate thousands or hundreds and millions, yet the mind is never restrained, it's never satisfied, and it wants more and more. There's many shabas where Guruji says that Sas khate lakh ko uthta hai, tripat na ave maya pache pave. Guruji says that you got thousands, now you want 100,000, you got 100,000, you want a million. Mind is never satisfied, it's never content. So in this Shabad, Guru Arjan Dev Ji is trying to explain the same thing, and let's look into it. What is desire? How can we control this? And what are the main factors which gives us this yearning of more and more? The first thing that we have to understand is that we are in a rat race. You must have heard this thousands of times, and we probably everyone would agree on this, that the society that we live in today is largely driven by comparison and competition. So we are always comparing ourselves with someone else. My performance, how wealthy I am, or how intelligent I am, or anything, is always relative to someone else. And we're in a constant rat race. Like even if you look at how our mortgages are designed in UK, we have mortgages. In India, you have house loans, home loans, whatever that may be. If you look at that, it's designed in a way that all your life you are, from the point you start earning to the point when you retire, you die, or your body stops functioning. That's how long the mortgage terms are these days. 35 years, 40 years, or even 25, 30 years, whatever that is. But roughly from 30, when you people start earning now, to a point where like 60, 65, all they're doing is just paying off the mortgage, paying off the bills, etc. It's all been designed in a way, and then by the time you're retired, um, there's this constant rat race that we are in because of the way the society is designed and the way we live. Um, and this rat race is obviously producing more desires as we go along. When I'm in my mum and dad, for example, I'm just giving an example. Like my parents would never be have never been like innovative. What I'm trying to say is that, so uh, if I do well in my exams is okay, but if someone does, my cousin would do better than me in exams, then it's a problem. So what I'm trying to say is that this comparison and competition um, leads us to unsatisfaction, and is leading us to us never being content. And what Paisa was saying about Ardasa, when you go to Gurdwara, you can pretty much um, judge this. What are the Sukhmi Sahibs being for? What are the Akhand part being booked for? Um, and there's constant desires which we keep asking to Guruji for, and but Guruji is Dayal, Guruji is compassionate, so he gives us that. But however, just asking for these desires is not is not what Sikhi is advising us. Sikhi is advising us not. Sikhi is not saying that don't ask for desire to ask Guruji to fulfill your desires, but also ask for Guru himself as well, which who would kill all of these desires. So I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. So, but whenever a desire gets fulfilled, or when I say I want more, when I think about something that when I um, when something that I really wanted is finally fulfilled, it gives us this pleasure, or you can call it sukh as well. Um, this reward that I've been rewarded. I was an engineer, then I became an engineering manager. Now from manager I become a director. This makes us feel that we've been rewarded, and we think that we're going to get sukh out of it. I want a car now, I want a better car. We think that car's going to give me sukh. I have a house now, I want a 5 bedroom house, now I want a 10 bedroom house. We think that by when all of this does give us a a weird sukh within us. It makes us feel that we are sukhi. But in reality, it cannot give you eternal sukh. It can give you sukh in terms of a temporary sukh, that will make you live in a more comfortable manner, but it won't give you eternal sukh. And the happiness, the eternal happiness that Guruji is trying to give to us. What we have to understand is that after a desire gets fulfilled, I get sukh, but every sukh has to come with a dukh. The only sukh which comes without a dukh, without pain, every pleasure has a pain attached to it. Um, However, the only sukh which doesn't have pain attached to it is Naam. What Guruji says is that Mangna mangan nika har jas gurte mangna. Guruji is saying that ask for things, nothing wrong for asking. However, ask for the Naam of Vaheguru, which would which doesn't have any dukh attached to it. So Naam gives us a sukh as well. It gives us a pleasure when we jap Naam. And what it does is that, but the Naam doesn't have a dukh attached to it. Naam only has sukh. And that's what Guruji is asking us to ask for. If you have a desire for Naam, have a desire for darshan of Sangat, have a desire for darshan of Vaheguru. These are desires as well. But these are the desires which are gonna ultimately kill all our worldly desires. Um, so another thing that we have to understand, other aspect of this, why do I want more, is because there are there are our, the way our life is, or the modern society that we are in, has been designed in a way that to create a sense of lacking within ourselves. For example, there are companies which they're profiting from our desires. If you go and do a little bit of research on this, the marketing industry is actually based on instigating your desires, um, through your eyes. So the nine horses we spoke about in the previous section, through my eyes, my sense of taste, sense of smell, through sense of touch. All of these are exploited so that someone can profit from it, and create this sense of lacking. And when I have this sense of lacking, I now want to buy that thing, although I don't need it, but I'm buying it, which is something called impulsive shopping. So even when you go into supermarkets, what you're going to see is that the things that you need, um, it's been designed in a way that you have to go through every single aisle to get to things uh, which are the things for daily needs. So you may have come to buy potatoes, but you end up doing a £30 shopping because you've gone through all of those aisles, and you've seen something, now you want to buy it. And apart from that, obviously the advertisements, the way the advertisements are, the marketing industry. But the same thing has done a lot on this. He's worked in that sector, so we can maybe speak about that at the end of the section. But there are there's this profit mechanism, which and what the marketing is trying to do is to stimulate these desires, um, through and the medium to do that are these advertisements, or you turn on the radio, everything is driven by marketing. um, but Guruji says that you have to, in order to stop these desires, think in this way, that you're here as a traveler. Now, one thing that desire has a relationship with attachment. Desire has relationship with many other things, which which takes us away from Sikhi. And and I think that, and even Guruji says that, and even Gursikhs by Maskinji says this as well, is that desire is actually the main reason for us coming back, because unfulfilled desires then get fulfilled again in the next janam. Then we collect more desires, and then they then get fulfilled in the next janam. So and in Gurbani, like for example, there's a shabad as well, Bhagat Trilochan, where Bhagat Trilochan ji is saying that the ant kal jo Lakshmi simra aisi chinta mehje mare, sarp joon wal wal utre. Like same way Bhagat Trilochan ji is saying that if your desire is, or your chinta when you're dying is just of of your kids, or lust, then you come in those life forms accordingly. Um, so what Guruji is saying is that what Sikhis is trying to realign us on is that, and these are some of the analogies that Guruji is using. So for example, charity, and the charity that was just an analogy. Same way, to detach ourselves from this sense of lacking and this sense of wanting more. Um, there is Guruji's Sikhi is advising us to live like a traveler. A traveler is when we go on a holiday. I don't get attached to the house that I'm living in, do I? Because I know I'll have to leave it one day. I don't get attached to the car I might have rented, because I know that I'm going to leave that. But we don't live our life this way. Although we are here as a traveler as well, in a way. Um, the only difference is when I go on a holiday, I might be there for 10 days, 15 days, 20 days. But here, I'm here for 50 years, 60 years, or even a few years for some. Um, but but the but the aim is that we is the same path, isn't it? We are here as a traveler. My body is not going to stay forever. My house is not going to stay forever. When I die, someone else is going to own it. My house, my car, nothing like that is going to stay forever. But because of these desires and wanting more and more and more, I'm getting attached to it ultimately. And this attachment is very difficult to let go of unless you're aware. awareness is quite important. And that's where Guruji is advising us, that Sikhi is advising us that live like a traveler. How a traveler doesn't get attached to things because he knows that he has to leave. Then why don't we live our life in this way, where we don't get attached, although we have to live in this. Renouncing the world is not a path. So when that's what a lot of some of the religions believe that because if we live in this worldly life, or in this in society, then what's going to happen is that we can never get away from desires. Or if I'm living as a grast jivan where I have a family, then I obviously need a house, so I'm going to get wrapped into those tangles. But Guruji says that even renouncing doesn't let go of desires and attachments. um, it's not outwardly thing, although those are factors, but it's all about our man. It's all about us realigning our desires so that we can kill our worldly desires. And there was a question on Nindya. And these can also this can also relate to Nindya as well. Um, the competition and comparison, which is driven by desire, leads to Nindya as well. We can tackle that separately. But cutting long story short, Guruji is advising us live like a traveler. Um, think about this life, which is temporary. Body's temporary, so don't spend all your life getting attached to the things which you don't have, or you've got after a very long time, and don't make desires. Um, um, don't don't expand your desires, or keep having more and more desires. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have desires. There was a question that came up last time, is that um, we shouldn't take this as a thing that desires are bad. um, they're not bad. We just need to realign them so that uh, we can focus on our Sikhi. So going on this, the positive steps for 2021, what we thought could be is that we need to start behaving more as a guest rather than a permanent resident. Reconsider our desires and change what you ask from Guruji. Like we said, mangna mangani ka harjas gurte mangna. Why don't I why don't I go and ask for Guru, so that if I get Guru, then I would never have to ask for anything again. Like that's what Sikhi teaches us, that ਇਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਮੰਗੋ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਤੋਂ, that you don't have to ask for anything again. um and like Pastor said, when we go into Gurdwara, look at everything is driven by an ask. I was actually watching a documentary the other day, um when and in there they went to all the different places of worship. They went to Somnath Mandir, which is one of the most holiest shrine for in Hinduism. Some other mandirs, went to some church, and also showed Harmandir Sahib as well. And they spoke to the devotees who came there to do Matha Tek for Harmandir Sahib, and to the mandirs. And if you look at the reason why they're coming there, is actually the same. It's not different. Yes, we say that, okay, Sikhi is unique, Sikhi is beautiful. What Sikhi has, maybe not any other religion can compete with it, or the teachings of the Guru are unique. But when you look at what the Sikh are doing, is nothing different to what others are, because the reason for coming to Guru is a mang, is a desire. And but as you said, Guru is Dayal, Guru ne ta de dena hai. Um, like in Gurbani, like in Japji Sahib as well, Guru Sahib is saying that din da din lende thak paaye, juga jugantar khai khai. That jada den wala hai, he keeps giving, and the one who's asking for it keeps asking, and he. But this doesn't break the cycle. What breaks the cycle is the sukh, the desire for Nam, which gives you sukh, the eternal sukh, and doesn't have a dukh attached to it. So I think that's my 20 minutes. So that's all I wanted to cover. Why do I always want more? We do have a poll on this, so I will launch that poll. Right. Let me launch this. So poll is how often do you do impulse shopping where you buy something and then realize you didn't really need it? We normally say in our course like, oh, I've got Audi Q4 A4, but my neighbors bought an Audi Q5 S line. Now suddenly my Audi A4 is nothing. I start feeling I get desire for getting even better car. So I'm not thankful of what I have, but these desires make me less compassionate, less um, um, and these desires always make me want more, basically. So that's all I want to say. How many people? 16 out of 19. So there's 3 more. Let's wait for 10 or 15 seconds. There's always 3, is it?
Yeah, I think it got to about 1 less, I think.
Yeah, you got 2. Okay. All right. Let me end the poll. We already got 17 out of 9. So a lot of people have said that. Majority have said quite often, and then some have said sometimes it does happen. And also, you must have seen nowadays that there's obviously a lot going on about Facebook and WhatsApp connecting, and the new features, etc. that are gonna basically stop the encryption. But if you must have seen that, I don't know, it happens to me a lot where like I'm talking about something that I want to buy this. When you go on Amazon, that thing that product pops up. So they're going to a state where like when you talk about something, they want to sell it to you. And not just that. I was looking at this Neuralink company, and what they're trying to do is basically design a chip that can sit in your skull in your head. And what it's going to do is that it can connect as soon as you think of something, the product is on your way. So it's they're basically trying to connect whatever your desire for is in front of you. So you don't even have to go for shopping, or you don't even have to go to a website to buy that product. So it's quite evil when you look at that, how it's all designed in order for us to instigate our desires so that we want to buy more. Even color schemes as well is to catch our attention. For example, you must have seen a lot of brands are red and white. Is that catchy color, which basically when there's obviously psychology behind it, that those are, we automatically get attracted to those colors, and those brands have a longer imprint in our mind compared to others with different color, like Vodafone you must have seen is red and white. um so yeah, so just wanted to say like how much is happening there, trying to pull us in all different directions. But Sikh is like Guruji says, is like that lotus flower which lives in dirt but stays away from dirt. And that's what we have to play, is that's what Sikhi's path is. That Anjan Mahe Niranjan Rahi hai, Jog Jugat Ev Pai hai. Guruji is saying yogis used to leave everything and then live somewhere else. Um, but Sikhi says that you have to stay within this, but have to stay detached from it. So 2021, what we could think of is that how can we realign our desires? How can we bring desires which is going to progress my Sikhi, is going to give me, make me more content, make me reduce my comparisons with others and competition and this rat race that we are in. And some of the desires are, um, have a desire to see Sangat every day. Could be a desire when I go to next time. It could be something like when I next time go to do Matha Tek at Guru Kar, when I see Guruji, I'm not gonna ask for anything worldly. I'm going to ask for Guru himself. I'm going to ask for Amrit Vela. I can do ardas for my Jivan. So there's so many different things we can do. But at the same time, don't take it as a message that if we need something, we shouldn't ask Guru for that. You know? Guruji is saying, for example, Man mango tan, Lakshmi sut de. You know? Guruji is asking for these things as well. However, provided that I don't forget Naam. Like Paisa was saying, Moti ta mandir usra ratni ta hoye jadao, Kastur Kangu. Like in that Shabad, Guruji is listing all of these things. However, the condition is कि मैं वाहिगुरु ना भूल जावां. I don't forget Vaiguru. That's the condition. You know? So, Paisa, I will
Yeah,
let you
just
take over now.
before you switch off, there's one question that was related to what you're speaking about. It's saying something about doesn't desire equal need, which equals fear, which in turn helps to do Simran Nam. I think you touched on it in the reconsidering of desires at the bottom there. But saying doesn't desire lead to Simran is what it's asking. Like for instance, in Gurbani, Guruji saying, "Visar nahin datar apna naam deho, gun gawan din raat nanak chao." So Gurbani is talking about desires as well, but it's saying desire for naam, desire for bhakti, desire to meet someone who's spiritual, desire to meet Guru, desire to meet God, and other different things.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Is there any other question? Or shall we look at all the questions at the end? How do you want to do it?
Yeah, we'll do it at the end. That'd be great.
Okay.
I think we're good. It's a little bit tight, but I'm gonna move on and let me just reclaim it. Sorry, can you see my screen?
Yes, yeah, ego dies, the soul awakens, yeah.
Okay, good. Right. Okay. So this is the final section. Thank you, everyone. We've been on for 2 hours, so it's not a short time, but thank you. So I'm just gonna finish off with this section. So the ego is a very, very large concept in Sikhi. So it's not something we're just going to say we're going to cover it in 20 minutes, but I'm just going to cover some of the areas about ego because they drive so many things. But we'll start with what Guruji's talks about. So in egotism, the world was formed, oh man, forgetting the Naam, it suffers in pain. So this is Shabd that when Guru Nanak Dev Ji met the Siddh, these are the yogis who were who were hiding on Kailash Parbat, and they asked him lots of difficult questions. But Guru said something really, really interesting in that whole thing, is that creation is actually driven by a substance called Home. Home which Jag Upjay Purkha Naam Visriya Dukh Pai. And Guruji says that although ego is the essence that makes the world expand, and it's inside of us, if we indulge in it and forget Naam, then that's where pain comes in our life. So it's a very, very important part of our Sikhi is to understand that meh part of us. When I overtake everything and I say God doesn't exist, I did it all. That's our downfall, really, in Sikhi. So there's a whole shabd in Asakivar where Guruji says how much aya, how much gaya, how much jamya, how much mua, how much ditta, how much laya, how much khatya, how much gaya. Now our life has come to this stage now. We're here today because we've got this thing called ego. And unfortunately, what's going to happen is generally for a human being is before they've left, they haven't eradicated it. They haven't removed it. So Guruji says, we come in home, फिर जाना भी पैना home, and then we come back again in home again, and then we go again in home again, and it keeps us in a cycle. Um, it hasn't gone anywhere, and in many instances, after taking human life, home might be worse. It might be that we've come with a certain amount, and then we've made it worse by some of the things that when we talk, what Raman was discussing there, we've made our home worse and become more egotistical. God has it even smaller place in our life after after this birth, and that would be so. That's tragic. Guruji is calling that as as very very. It's unfortunate as an understatement, huh? It's like Guruji saying, "Bichare kar ki sakde." They're stuck. They're stuck in this world, and it's an illusion. So although it causes our rebirth, there's um, it has a toxic effect on everything that we do. So there's a in that Why Am I Here book, there's a section on the ego being a toxic disease. It's toxic because it's taking presence in everything that we do. So when we give, if you look at the our culture, even if you look at Punjabi culture some of it's defined by lena dena. I always I'll always talk to my mum about it because the old traditions. It's about learner. Although where that used to be, maybe it was done in pyar at one point. Nowadays, it's done as a formality. And Guruji says, "How much ditta, how much laya, how much khatya, how much gaya." So even we're giving in home, and then we take in home as well. It actually affects so many things. It affects our speech. It affects how we interact with the world. It affects all of our actions. To remove that, this is what the concept of Naam is in Sikhi. Now, Naam isn't just us saying Wahiguru, Wahiguru. No, that's an element of Naam, to say God's name. But Naam, if you get into the depth of what Gurbani is telling us, Naam is to say God is with me all the time. Ang Sang, that's one element of Naam. It's another to accept that God is the doer of all things. Now we're in Naam. When we say we go into Guru Sharan or sanctuary, Naam is that staying in that sanctuary, and then saying I'm more in tune with God than I am necessarily in tune with the world. That means we've got Naam. So there's lots of elements of Naam that we understand as we read more and more Shabads. And so it's not Naam is not just God's name. That's a very 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 high level thing to reduce it to. God's there's Shabads in Bani that say so aisa har naam te aaye man mere jo sabna upar hukum chalaye. So now Guruji is saying Naam is actually controlling everything, and everything that every human being is doing and all the other life forms is controlled by Naam. So aisa har naam te aaye man mere jo anti osar le shadai. So it saves you on the last minute. It makes the people who are against you come and beg at your feet. It destroys your destroys Bob. So some in many elements, Nam is God as well. It's regarded as God as God's power. So although our ego is a toxic disease, there are element there is a cure to it, which we'll cover in a minute. But what it leads to is us becoming very arrogant, and we have arrogance for very for different reasons. And the three elements that Guruji talks about, along with Jat Path, because Jat, a person is arrogant because they belong to a certain denomination. Someone's regards their Jat, their caste as higher than another. But there's things wider than that. There's social statuses as well. There's sometimes a white person thinks they're more than a black person. So just color of skin builds arrogance. So a person can be arrogant for many reasons, and that arrogance is a child of that ego. It's born from ego, and that arrogance is what gets attacked a lot in Gurbani. But apart from caste, there's three things that you're normally arrogant about. One is how much money you've got. That's called tan. One is joban, so our looks. Joban, usually young age or feeling or looking. Raman touched on the industry for money, how they make money out of us about buying things. Look how much money is spent on trying to look younger than what you really are. That. So Joban is one other element of our arrogance is how we look. And then prabhata, which is our reputation, our reputation is what builds arrogance too. So I'm better than another person, my status is higher than that other person, and leadership can lead to arrogance, and being older than somebody can lead to arrogance, and having more experience than somebody can lead to arrogance. So all of these things come from ego. They're called garb. In Gurbani it's called garb. And Kabir ji shabd where Kabir ji says, Kabir garb na kijiye, rank na hasiya koi. So Kabir ji saying, never laugh at somebody who appears to have a little bit less than you. So when again, going into the book, one of the questions that gets asked in the book is like, when we laugh, what are we laughing at? Think about when you last laughed, or when we laugh at something. It's a lot of the time it's at the expense of somebody else. There's many programs on television that they make lots of money from people's misfortune so that people can laugh at them. And when Guruji says, "Home which hasse, home which rove," we laugh at someone's misfortune, but if that thing happens to us, we start crying. So if someone loses something, or their reputation gets damaged or something, then sometimes we're laughing at a home when we're laughing at them, and it's a really the reason why Kabirji is saying don't laugh like that around someone who's less fortunate than you in life. Don't laugh at them, because Kabirji gives a metaphor of a boat. He said all of our boats are out in the ocean. All of us are in the ocean, and somewhere a wave is going to come, and some boats are going to have to hit that wave. The wave's going to hit some of those boats. It could be a storm. So if we're okay, we might be in the calmer seas. If we're not okay, we're going to be in the rough sea, and it's going to hit our boat. And Kabirji says, because your boat's out there, we don't know what's going to happen. Today it looks like somebody else is doing bad and I'm doing good. Tomorrow it might be flipped, and the ocean, the waves hit me now, and now I'm doing bad in life, and they're doing better. So by laughing at them today, I have to cry. So Kabirji saying, don't get arrogant. Don't get egotistical about some things that you have, because in an instant God takes them, and in an instant God gives them. So in our life, we want to be successful, and we want to be spiritually successful as well, but we have to do it with a large level of humility. So when we look at this selflessness, home can only stop when you say, I'm not there now. And Gurbani says that, home and you we can't be, those concepts of naam I talked about earlier, where we're inside of God's power and we accept that God does everything. You can't do that and say it's me as well. Gurbani is saying you can't have both. You're that side or you're this side. Either you think that you do it, or you think that God does it. Either you think that you're saying your name, or you're saying God's name. Sometimes I'm just projecting myself rather than saying I'm worshiping God. So you can't have both. So the only way to truly remove ego is to be selfless, and that's just a bigger concept as Homer, is that the whole point of the things that we're doing is to eventually kill ourselves. It's to kill our mind, that the thing that's really wanting lots of things, we're slowly trying to destroy it. And when we look at the amount of time we spend in Sikhi, the amount of time we spend doing all the various things, sometimes the effect of them hasn't happened. I was listening to Sant Maskeen Singh's Katha, and he's talking about when he visits Gurdwara and things like that, and he's saying that he's watching people who've been there for 30 years. He says, but they haven't changed. Nothing's changed really, and that's sad, because it means that what we've thought is that the Sikhi that I'm doing, or the spirituality that I'm doing, however we phrase it, is okay, whereas it should be about we're advancing and we're getting, we're moving closer to the goal and doing that. And the only way to do that is to remove that arrogance, is to remove that ego, remove that thing about it's all about me. Life isn't all about me. Life is about, God and God's creation and serving that creation. And that's why Guruji gave us all of those things. Guruji says your heart can become pavitra by serving. Your feet can become, pavitra as in, they become beautiful, if you like. And um, they become sacred in their own right. But when the feet walk towards God, when they do things wherever I'm going, like Barney says, "Unim mande pair na rakhiyon, kar sokre to taram kamai." They don't put their feet wrong in terms of going to the wrong places or doing the wrong thing. They're selfless. They're selfless beings. So, our feet, our hands can become pavitra. Our feet can, our eyes do, our ears, and that's how we change. When your body slowly starts realigning itself away from my thing, I need this, I want this, I'm that, to tum tum, where Kabirji Shabd is tum tum karda tum hua. If I keep saying me, my ego is just going to grow. If I start changing that and say it's all about God now, then my ego has to shrink. They both can't be in the same place. So when we talk about virtues, we talked about them earlier. If you sit and actually do bhakti, you do simran, you do your part, you do all these different things. When your mind and ego starts shifting out the way, I think we talked about earlier, you start some new sensations start coming. And in Barney, that word is called upajay. It's called upajay. You say pao upajay, pe upajay, berag upajay, and birha upajay. The word comes in Barney a lot. It means that inside from internally some things are right, new emotions arise, and they're God emotions. When we remove ourselves, then God comes. When we bring ourselves back, God leaves. That's kind of the concept of Sikhi. So when the ego dies, the soul awakens. But as we keep feeding our ego, slowly we have a spiritual death. What Guruji calls it's atam hatya. We kind of kill our soul off in its own way because it's ineffective because of all those layers. So although ego is I've covered quite a lot there in a small space of time. But ego is a concept that we have to keep tackling that daily. Something we have to fight against. So if we look at some of the steps, the positive steps we can do. So we need to spend a bit more time putting me on hold. It isn't about me. It isn't. I'm not just living my life about how much I've got. Like when we talked about possessions, shortly, desires and all that. What would happen if I let go of some of those? Have a think. If I let go of some of those things, I said I don't want that anymore. What does it leave? It leaves a void. But what can you fill that with? And be conscious of your speech and kindness, because that's where ego tends to come out. It comes out in, I'm really proud that I've achieved this, or I've got this, or my children are doing this, or my job is this, or I'm in this circle. And do more for others. Try and do something for somebody. Help someone. And that what you'll see is that your ego has to go a bit to one side to be truly compassionate. And there's that word called empathy, isn't there? That empathy is, there's having pity on someone where you just feel a bit sorry for them, but there's also empathy where step into their shoes and say, now what do I see? Be kind, change that, be a bit more about somebody else, do something for someone, and just watch how your ego, sometimes it tries to come back in, sometimes you can push it out. Be more conscious of that, be aware of that ego, and hopefully it'll be more positive in terms of life and all the things that we do. So that is the end of the sections. We do have about 9 questions, I think we've got here, so we're going to run through those. If there's any you want to pick up first, Raman, you can do if you want.
Yeah, let me have a look. Do you want me to read through those questions one by one, and then we can?
Yeah, we can start. Or should we start with the ones that were just on this topic? Were there any on
Yeah,
this one?
sure. how do you balance self-confidence and ego? I feel like there is a very fine line.
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. Um, do you want to answer that, Ron?
No, you take it as your topic.
So
Give me the
sometimes
easy ones.
self-confidence and ego is a very fine line. And one of the shabds used to, when we should talk about this kind of area, is when Guru Gobind Singh Ji won a battle, Guruji says, "Pai jeet meri, kirpa kaal keri." He says, "It's God's kirpa, but I got the win." So when you talk about self-confidence, there's nothing wrong with being self-confident. The last thing I would want to see is people not progressing in their jobs and things like that, thinking, "Well, that's ego." That's not right. That's not the way to think about it. So sometimes when you have to progress in life, of course, you're gonna have to put credentials. I mean, we presented ourselves with credentials today, right? But I'd hope that my credentials are because of Guruji. That's what I believe. My credentials are because of God. So when you're confident, sometimes having man, when we say menu mane by Guru, sometimes that man is the thing that's destroying your ego. You have to kind of, when Guruji says you have to use your ego to destroy your ego, that's actually true. That first initially it starts with accepting God and saying, but my hon and my mare is for God. So like there's a shabd called hon, so that says hon aya duro chalke main takito sharanai jiyo. Now if you look at the two words at the beginning of that, it's hon and mare. So if we use our ego, but we're really what we're doing is using it to glorify God, if you like, and say God does it really, then you can be very confident in that as well. There is a level of confidence that comes up, and it's in Bhagavad Bani as well, where they were tortured. If you see how Kabirji was tortured, how Bhagavad Ravidas Ji was tortured, um, but when you see what they did, Namdev was tortured by Sultan Pucheswan where Nama was tortured, but he said, look, I can't do anything, but God does it. He said, because he wanted him to bring a cow back to life. He said, I don't do, God does things like that. I can't do that. Well, yes. So you have to still be confident in the fact that God is with you, and the things that you need to do. But at the same time, you don't do it to the point where you think, oh, well, I did it. And I think that it's absolutely a brilliant question, because there is a very fine line in those two things.
Yeah.
So that's good. That was the ego. That was the ego one. There's another one here.
There's one on the top. It says, "Are obtrusive, sinful thoughts sinful? When you have no control of them, do you think to think them and they even upset you?"
Yeah, that's a good. So when
Not
when
want
you
to.
have a thought that we're feeling that we've got no control over, if you look at how things like that are handled through. One thing I just want to underline here, sometimes if there's a traumatic experience that someone's had, and the thoughts are there, sometimes you do need professional. Sometimes people do need professional help. You've got to remember that if we, there's if someone's very very adept and strong about how they use Gurbani, I don't doubt that those things can be solved like that. But sometimes if we're not, and things are bothering us, I do want to underline that sometimes a person does need some assistance in dealing with certain thoughts as well, if they are related to trauma and things like that. When we have sinful thoughts, it feels like we're not in control of those thoughts, but in what Guruji is saying is they are there for a reason. And sometimes dream state sometimes helps you understand it a bit more. Some of the dream makes no sense whatsoever. Where's that dream come from? But the dream has been generated from your emotion. It's been generated from an emotion that's happening inside you. So although those thoughts feel like they're not mine, I don't own those thoughts, where are they from? They're coming from something deep internally that's there. And there's ways of removing ourselves from that. And one thing around this subject, because there's about 3 questions around this, and I just want to answer parts of all 3 of them with one thing. When I ask Gursikhs and other people, when I sit with them, a lot of the time I ask them, like, can you tell me about a positive thing that you've done in the last. What positive thoughts have you got about what you've done in the last 6 months? Something really. Tell me something that's made you really happy. And they sit there like this, and they sit there scratching their heads, going like, "Oh, I can't think of anything." And like you're thinking, well, how are we living our lives? You know, how are we living our lives? You know, you positive memories make positive thoughts and make positive futures in their own way, right? So you got to do things that make you happy, do things that are positive, do things that are, you know, they're enriching your virtues. They're bringing those things out. When you start doing those, older thoughts get replaced by them. They get replaced, they get move out of the way. Sometimes something might come up from things, but I'll give you an example from my life. If I keep looking back at my life when I was 18, 19, when we were going out to pubs, clubs, nightclubs, and those things. If I keep looking at that, then I'm not going to get anywhere. I've got a whole rich life that happened after that, when I was 22 onwards, and those things replace uh, a whole host of things that I might have done when I was younger. So make sure that you're doing, you know, whenever you do something positive, reflect on it as well. Feel good about it, you know, and you I guarantee this, you'll feel change. You'll feel massive change inside, that you start associating more with those actions rather than those other ones that you might be causing issues. So especially if a certain feeling's upsetting you, you know, one of the things, like I say, trauma, if it's trauma based, I honestly, please, professional help is the right thing, I would say. But if it's, I've sat quietly. I do it for, I could do it for a long time. I've done it for a long time, and sometimes those thoughts that are deep inside, they come to the forefront. They only come to the forefront because you relaxed. You got to let them come to the forefront. Sometimes our whole life is about distraction. I mean, I see people who are just working constantly, hard work, hard work, hard work. They're distracting from their own inner thoughts. And look, if I said to someone, okay, what we're going to do, just go out and walk to the shop and come back, what would they do? They'd go out, they'd grab a phone, and they'd be on their phone all the way to the shop, and they'd be on the phone all the way back. It's like they don't give their mind even time to think. So sometimes you have to reflect internally, and it's just we've spent so little time doing that, that these monstery thoughts might be there. But work through them. Sometimes, you know, sometimes work through them. Why is that there? What's going on? And see the positive ones coming through as well, and reflect on those too. It's important. It's very important. And one of the things to always remember is, you know, the Guru Shabad. The Guru Shabad is there because the whole point of it is it changes your vichar, it changes your soch, and it changes your memories as well. The Shabad is there for that. How long do you spend in a Shabad is really important, because that changes who you are as well. So the Guru's given us technology to deal with all of that thing. But he has said to us, and Guru's questioned our mind in so I'm hoping I'm answering one or two in this, is that Guru's asked us to question our mind. He says, Manare kaun ko mat telini? Because where did you get all this corruption from? He's asking his mind, Guru saying, talk to your mind. Ask it, where's it got it from? He says, you keep looking at women in a lustful way. Pardara, nindya, rasarachio, nindya kari janda man. It keeps slandering. Why does it keep doing that? Guru saying, ask it, why is it doing it? Where's it got that from? Where's it got that knowledge from? And our Shabad, the Guru Shabad, changes that knowledge. And the experience does too. So it's quite important to understand that obtrusive thoughts don't own you. They don't own you. You know? A thought can just be there and you can ignore it and carry on. A thought doesn't own you. You're not the thought. And that's the important distinction.
There's a related question actually. You brought this up. A few lines how to separate mind on going towards Nindya. Any suggestions? Very easily get captured in Nindya.
Yeah. So the bottom line, the bottom line of why we do Nindya is, and Guruji says it. I mentioned it earlier. "Pe karna sune kahu ki ninda, sabte jane aapas ko manda." When Nindya enters your ear, Nindya meaning, if someone doesn't know the phrase, Nindya is slandering someone, making them look low, worse than what they are, or saying something bad about somebody. If someone says something bad and it enters your ear about somebody, you would only acknowledge that if you think that you're better than them. The whole what Guru's saying is, If you're worse than somebody, why would you acknowledge India? So there's a thought process in in our way we handle our Sikhis that I'm the worst. I'm worse than everybody. Why do you want to tell me talk about somebody to me for? I'm worse than them. So the only way you stop India is you have to be lower than the India. Then the India doesn't. It's like Teflon. Can't stick to you. India can't stick to you. Then if you're lower, you just have to say, "Well, poor thing. Feel sorry for them." If you hear it.
And also, just to add a point there, comparing it to the worldly things, why do we not park on a no parking zone? Because we know that there's consequences to it, right? Whenever we not do something wrong in our life is because we know what the consequences of those are. Same in Sikhi, yes, slandering, talking ill about someone, being lustful, all of these have consequences, and Guruji has has listed some of those consequences as well that the soul has to face in when he goes to Guru's darbar, you know. So sometimes I think some for me especially, I think when I read about those consequences and keep those in my mind, it stops me from doing those things in the first place. Um, and but however, some mind, but how Kabir also says that man janat sab baat, janat hi avgun kare. But the man is so shaitan, he's so chalak that even after knowing consequences, sometimes man still does it, you know. So, but I think knowing what the consequences are of slandering, knowing what the consequences are of doing these things and how we have to pay that back, sometimes can help some people stop them from doing it. You know? Let's look at another one. The thought of living a life. Sorry, actually, before I go into that one, there was what what do you do if your partner is not on the spiritual path as you and does not accept Sikhi no more?
We'll come to that because I think there's some related ones to the ones we just answered, isn't there? So
Gone.
there's this one. How do you overcome the pain of looking inside ourselves and being disgusted with our thoughts and actions? And there's another one about how do you break past the fear of looking inside oneself? So to look inwards is a very challenging thing, and even when we when we looked at the first chapter of the Why Am I Here book, the first one of the first chapters looks at your identities, because we made all these identities that I say, like, I'm a husband, or I'm a brother, or I'm an architect, or I'm a Millwall fan, or I'm a whatever I am. We made all of these things. When you let all of those go and then say, now what am I? Sometimes it can be scary, can't it? It can be like, wait, hang on a minute. If I'm not really because what Guruji says is Jem Maat Pita Sut Meetna Pai Man Uhan Nam Tere Sang Sahai. So when we pass away and you go to the we have to go to the next world, if you like, if I use that phrase. Guruji saying that, wait, there's going to be no mother there, no father there, no brother there, no friend there, nothing. He says then only Nam is going to be there for you if you're connected with it. So although it's fearful to do that now, what Guru's saying is you're going to have to do it at some point, because they're not going to be there. Nothing's going to be there. So when you have to look, we have to now look inwards and say, although I might find things that I don't like, I might find things that I'm scared of. I'm saying, like, I'm fearful of, what do I really want to know who I am? That's the what our guru's doing is, that's why we have to join with the guru first. I don't sometimes like that stuff when I see people doing spiritual stuff where they say sit down and just say a mantra here and a mantra there, do this, do that, because what's the support system for that? In what Guru's saying is, the Guru Shabad is the support. The Guru Shabad will protect you. It'll take you at the pace that you need to go, and it will also be there for you if you get into some form of trouble, or you're not sure. So it's when you're supported by the Guru, there's nothing too much to be fearful of. But what you do have to understand is that you might not always see positive things about yourself, but sometimes seeing the negative, if you don't know you got the problem, you won't solve it. It's kind of one of those. It's one of those things. Is that you only solve a problem when it's in your face and you say, "Oh yeah, there is a problem." But we can live a whole life by not going inwards and just feeling that this outward fluffy life that we have is real and is right. But then when it gets taken away, then it's like, "Oh my gosh, that's like a dream." And one of the things that I find is that when we're living our life, Guru showing you it's a dream, you know? He's showing us every day is a dream. Like you started at the beginning of this course, you can't go back to that point now. That's a dream. There's nothing more than a dream. What you did yesterday was a dream. It's a dream now. It's a everything's just Guru showing us that it's a dream. Every second goes past and the past just becomes a dream. And it's just a memory. It's just something that was so it's a positive thing. It's not necessarily something to be fearful of. It's certainly something to be, yeah, you might be a bit apprehensive that what's going to happen, what am I going to see, do I really want to look at that? And I think this is also linked to the last question where it says the thought of living a life that's different to the rest of the world is very scary. Absolutely. How do we move beyond being scared of this change and really start to make a difference in our bhakti and our spiritual life? It is scary to say that the more I'm seeing day by day, people are moving towards atheism. They're moving towards, agnostic. We're not sure. Maybe there is a God, maybe there isn't. And you're always going to be, Guru made a Sikh. A Sikh is always someone who's nyara. You stick out. Everywhere I've gone, I've been the only Sikh. And you're always going to be this person who's different. And they're always doing different things too. So sometimes it is a challenge. So there's two things there. There's that internal challenge of most people don't really want to look inwardly. When we do enlightenment course, there's one section that we do in there where we talk about a 17th century scholar who said the human being's biggest weakness is that they don't want to look inwards. They don't want to see their thoughts. They don't want to sit with their thoughts. He says that's the biggest weakness of a human being. Our Guru's Bani is telling us to absolutely go there and sit there with them and say, now sit with it. Now understand what your Sangat is. Whose company are you sitting with? When we talk about anger sitting inside and lust is sitting inside. And, there's some shabds that talk how they all come together and do a meeting. they meet together and they plot about how they're going to stop you getting amrit ras, how they're stopping you move forward. So the inward journey is important, and then living that inward journey and being this thing that's niyara or different from the rest of the world is another new challenge as well. And you need support. What you need is sangat. The thing that helps the most in that, for those fears and those anxieties and those apprehensions is sangat, is when someone supports you and says they've been through that themselves, so they've done it themselves. That's what does it. So that covers some of those things. There's a the marriage one. I'm going to leave that till last. I think that covers this. But there's a question here about tribes taking psychedelic drugs and mushrooms and all these other things that do pineal gland activation. There's the God drug I've heard about, and these things. Now, you got to be very careful here now. Now, what when Guru Nanak Dev Ji met the yogis, what the yogis used to do, they used to make a alcoholic substance, and they would drink the substance, and then they say, we're gone, we've reached it, we're feeling it now. We sanu ras aa gaya, ras mil gaya. Now there's a shabd, you can read the shabd. The shabd is gud kar gyan dhyan kar dhave kar karni kas paiye. What Guru said to the yogis was, he goes, make gyan the sugar that you're putting into it, dhyan, make your full consciousness, your conscience, the ingredient of the water and the twist, make that proper karni. They do the actions that make you really close to God. Pati pavan prem ka pocha itras amechwa. Guru Sahib says these gone inside, make love come out and make it the ingredient. Make it the ingredient. That's what is that's the true drug. Because when you eat that night and day, you get connected. Because then it doesn't stop. He says that's the real drug. All the other stuff is going to give you a temporary fix for a short amount of time, and it's anras, what Guru calls anras. Raman, I just need to come off for a second. There's a little bit of
Okay.
there's a leak going on over here. I just need to fix it. But if you
Okay.
just answer one question, I'll be back in a second.
I just wanted to add to that. Also, I think pineal gland, we also sometimes refer to that as English terminology for the samdwar. I'm not saying they're both the same thing, but the concept sounds similar. But the Dasam Dwar, if you look at Gurbani, Guruji is saying that Dasam Dwar is not, which is the 10th gate. And so we have 9 gates on our body, and that's what I was referring to as 9 horses as well. I said Guruji uses different, in Sikhi, there's different analogies he used to refer to them. So these, so there's the way we feed information or is through these 9 gates into our mind. The 10th one that Guruji is referring to is called the Dasam Dwar, through which you can access Vaheguru, but that is not from my understanding at least. I don't think Guruji is referring to a physical gate there. So, and anything that can be activated through external things like the drugs or certain drugs, or like what Baisa was referring to, how yogis used to make these drinks or these mushroom activation and stuff like this. That is all through something that is externally done on your body to activate something which is not external, which is not physical. So that concept, I think, if you look at Dasam Dwar as something which is gupt, the Guruji is saying it's gupt. The gupt means it's kept as a secret. That means it's not something that you can look at. My eyes, I can see them. My nose, I can see that. But you cannot see a Dasam Dwar. Guruji says why Guru has kept that as a gupt thing. You know? So the thing that you can't see, how can you activate that by something external, you know, or something physical? Is what at least my understanding is of this topic. I think there was another question. What do you do if your partner is not on the spiritual path as you and does not accept Sikhi no more? This is a very difficult situation when your partner is not in Sikhi themselves. It's easy to talk about it, but it's difficult to practice it in real life. But in our family as well, there is my father-in-law my father-in-law is not in Sikhi, but my mother-in-law is, and she's Amritari. And we have gone through that, and we've seen how difficult that can be. However, if you look at yourself as an individual soul and them as an individual soul, obviously there's things that you can do. For example, you can do ardas for them, you can do part for them, you can do many things like that. Those are the things that you can do, but the other thing that you can do something for yourself, that is that recognize yourself as an individual who's on a journey. End of the day, you have to be a little bit selfish there as well. There's a little bit of selfishness, and don't take it in a negative way, but in a positive way. You sometimes have to be selfish to ensure that you yourself are first healthy in Sikhi, whether your man itself is on track or not, before we think about anyone else, and not just dunya outside your house, but even your own partner or even your kids. Before we start preaching to them, before we start thinking about them, the first thing that we have to think about is ourselves, is whether my mind is on track, whether my mind is listening to myself or not. Yes, you can share the Sikhi with everyone, but end of the day, I'm on my own track. My kids on a different path. My wife is on their own journey. Everyone's on their own individual journey. End of the day, so you have to think about this a little bit in a selfish way as well. But as I said, not in a negative. Don't take it negatively. But there are things that you can do. And ultimately having that bharosa in Guruji, having faith is a very important thing, which I think is a very deep topic. Having faith on Guruji can sometimes turn things around as well. Things which are not even in your karam, things are not meant to happen, can happen if you have faith in Guruji. But as I said, it's easy to talk about this here, sitting here, but it's not as easy when you have to go through that in your life. There were some questions that came up in the last session that we did, where there were physical abuse. Someone has gone through physical abuse. How do they then still look at their partner in a positive way and still be nice to them and still give good back to them? Again, these things are easily said, but hard to implement. But that doesn't mean that they cannot be implemented. So yeah, that's all. I think I'll let Paisa, if he comes back, then we can talk about that. Let me check. Can you take Amrit while partner has not quite reached the level yet? Again, I think it's a related question. According to Rahat Maryada, or according to a lot of Amrit Sanchars, the Amrit is given to a couple, if you're married already, because a Gursikh marriage, a Gursikh should always get married to a Gursikh. That's what the Rahat is about. But there are instances where individuals have been given Amrit as well. But there's many Amrit Sanchars where individuals get Amrit. There's different opinions on this topic. But what we believe is that a Gursikh should first try and convince their partner in the first instance. However, if the partner doesn't want to accept Sikhi or doesn't want to come into Sikhi, then I think Guru is Dayal. Guru is compassionate. So if you go to the Guru, then the Guru would give you Amrit. It depends how much yearning do you have within yourself. So yeah. Let me check if there's any other questions. Okay. I'd like to finish off with about the same thing, but if he comes back. But let's see another minute or two. Just going through the chat if there's any questions there. Yeah, there's this about not avoid angry person. It's not a question, but I think it's a suggestion from someone. Again, I think it's about not saying selfishness in a negative way, but I was just saying that sometimes you have to think about yourself first in Sikhi to ensure that your mind is on track. You yourself are in the right order before you start thinking about something else, isn't it? So I was just talking about that in context of some of the questions which we have received around partners not being in Sikhi. I don't know whether you want to add to it on there's a how do you oops, sorry, okay, the open ones. What would you do if your partner is not in Sikhi? That was the question. So
If they're not on the spiritual path,
the
it
spiritual
doesn't
path.
accept Sikhi anymore.
Yeah.
So obviously you've got to move on, and I've seen a few cases like that where usually it's the husband who's not interested. There have been cases where the wife's not been interested and the husband is, and it causes a lot of imbalance. To be honest, it is a very, very difficult situation. What I've seen though is that when someone's really dedicated to their Sikhi and they carry on and they move through it, the partners change. And I've seen that in a few cases, not just one. Is that sometimes Sikhi forced on a partner, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't work. In fact, it puts a bigger barrier. it puts a bigger wall up. Whereas Sikhi, moving through Sikhi and saying, these are my steps, I know this is what I've got to do in my life, and doing those steps, sometimes that well, not sometimes, it changes the environment around you. It changes it. And whatever step you've got to take to move to the next step, Guruji changes your environment to make that happen for you. That's really true. Is that whatever, however much Guru wants to give you, you'll get it, and he's going to give you more. And when he starts giving you more, if that eventually means that your partner needs to change to make that happen, they'll change. It's just have faith and keep moving forward. Don't ever give up on it. Don't ever. But when we talk about actions as well, Garam and people's what they've come here with, when we talked about Homajaya before, is that sometimes people come with a lot of baggage. They've come with a lot of baggage, and that baggage sometimes has to be a bit removed before the goodness comes through it. But sometimes happiness doesn't always come in the package that you recognize it as. It comes in a way that looks like, oh, this ain't working for me. Then all of a sudden, you see a really dramatic change. So don't ever give up on the direction. Really, don't ever give up. And what was the other one here? Yeah, there was something about the angry person, because it came in the chat, because I think we didn't answer it properly, I guess, based on the question was clarified a bit further.
I don't think it was a question. I think it was a opinion from someone, and they said, don't avoid angry person, because you said avoid angry person. Avoid long focus on anger, but put focus on solution.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Is there any more questions?
No, I think that's it, really. Apart from that, we have spoken about, actually, yeah.
Can you take Amrit while partner has not quite reached that level? It's a little bit of a varying thing, that one is. In the Panth, it's like certain, so if you go to Amrit, some places they really want husband and wife to do it, but you can sometimes take Amrit without your partner. But it's a difficult one, isn't it? Obviously if you partner and you do it together, the accelerations are going to be very, very fast. When you're doing it yourself, it causes some restriction. But some partners have developed that understanding, saying that, okay, you're on that path, I'm not. If you want to do it, carry on. So it depends where sometimes it's actually from a Riayat perspective, it's not accepted unless they both have really agreed that this is the way forward. How can we best, a late question here, how can we best accept Guru's hukum and avoid losing faith in our Guru after being rejected of our ardas that we believe is Sikhi related and would propel our Jeevan forward? What you do, ardas, I read about this from Raghbir Singh Bir a long time ago. Sometimes one ardas isn't just enough. Sometimes you have to, ardas has to be done consistently until that thing, you keep doing it. Like, what we have to act like is a jachak. See, jachak, with beggars. When a beggar does an ardas, you don't just ask for it one day. It's that becomes your ardas, becomes you, it becomes part of you, becomes what you're doing. So don't ever just think that if I've done one ardas, it hasn't happened, then okay. I'm not on about a worldly thing here. It's specifically saying about moving your Sikhi forward, and you've done an ardas and it hasn't still happened yet. If it's out there, think of it like this: if you've given the message to God, He'll fulfill it. He'll fulfill it, but He has to do it. It has to be done in a certain way. And it's just again, it's going back to that other thing. It's about being patient, but don't give up on your own Sikhi. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. Yeah, there's always steps that you can do. Because sometimes what we define Sikhi as is, I'm keeping my Panchakakari there and I do my Nitnem, and I've done Amrita now, and that's it. I've moved on. I'm moving ahead. I'm fat. That's Tika. They're back foundation. That's not Sikhi. There's many elements of Sikhi that you have to develop. There's loads of it, and even if your time hasn't come to do those two or three things yet, you've got to work on all the other stuff. Work on it as a broader thing to get those done as well.
Also, when some ardas doesn't come true, that could be that it's probably not the right thing for us at that stage as well.
Yeah.
On Sikhi, you know?
Yeah. So
Sometimes when you get too much too early in Sikhi, that can take you off the path as well.
yeah, we've seen that too, where it happens too quick, and you're not mature enough to deal with it, and then it's like, wait, it's wasted. So it's almost like you've got to be, the right time will happen. Just to keep moving forward, remove all the things we talk about today, removing ego, changing those desires. Focusing, making sure that our inner thoughts are right. Everything's there, getting closer to God. There's ways of using Gurbani to get much closer to God, and then eventually God will do what needs to happen. Huh? But I think that's it for today.
Hmm.
Thank you, everybody, for coming on to this workshop. It's been really good. And thanks, everyone, for raising questions as well, because sometimes it gets a bit quiet at the end, and no one. It hasn't happened on our workshops, but sometimes you can see a workshop could end up with no questions. But really appreciate everyone being honest and asking the questions too. So certainly look out for the new things that we're doing. We'll probably do some other workshops with new areas later on in the coming months as well. So really thank everyone for coming on, and hopefully, like I say, stay happy, stay safe in the coronavirus as well. If we lock down, if you're in UK, and keep moving forward towards Guruji's love. Raman, you want to say anything?
Yes, if you've said anything out of line, we try to keep as close as possible to Guruji's message. If you've said anything, Bhula Chuka Dikhema, sorry for that. But thanks for joining. And yes, hope just stay tuned. You can follow us on Share Charity social media, just so that if there's more courses coming along, then you can attend. We hopefully, when things go back to normal, probably come back to face enlightenment course delivery, which is an 8-hour course. So, but yeah, thanks for joining.
Thank you, Ji. I'll just send the last thank you to everyone on the chat. So, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.